Hello everyone, this is Bob with County Records Research. We're going to get started here today in a few minutes with our Wednesday webinar for purposes of training and for the ability for clients to view this webinar later. We are recording this, and you'll be able to view this by going to our seminar page on the website at a later date if you want to view a webinar from the past. However, our seminar page also has, of course, the link to attend our live webinars on Wednesdays and Fridays. This is Wednesday, August 12th, 2015. So today's presentation is our Wednesday primer on how to use the website. The main focus of this presentation is to show you some of the techniques of research using the features of the site. And what we will do is, first of all, start off by going ahead and doing a search. We are going to wait a couple minutes. It's about 28 after at this point. We like to start at 2:30 and give people a chance to chime in. Usually people kind of roll in right about this time and over the next couple minutes. I've noticed Ron's there. Did you have any questions for me today, Ron?
You know me, I always have questions for you, Bob.
Well, you're more than welcome. You're the first player today. So, at the risk of sounding like a game show host, what are you looking for? Do you have a specific problem to resolve today?
You to come on down?
Sure, sure. Because with foreclosures, the price is always right. Well,
Oh
did
gosh.
you have a question I could help you with?
Do you have we have
With the second.
yeah. Hold on just one second. Yeah, here it
Sure,
is.
sure.
We're looking specifically at 83 Dapple Gray Lane in Rolling Hills Estates. We had some questions.
We're gonna go ahead and pull that one up. Now you'll notice I just used the single property search. For the people that have just joined us, I'm demonstrating the use of the website, and the gentleman that I'm speaking to mentioned a specific address. So what I do, now notice I'm using Google Chrome as my browser. When we're in Chrome, you'll have tabs up at the top like you can see here that look like they're in a notebook or 3-ring binder. All of our different browsers give us these tabs that we can use to navigate between pages. And you'll notice search results is my list of addresses here. And then over here, it says County Records Research. If I click on that, then I'm right back at my main page. So what I did, knowing the target zone for the property, I selected that zone. And then knowing the street number that the gentleman just gave me is 83, I put 83 in here and I hit search. My search results reveal normally the property I'm looking for is at the top of the list, and it looks like that's the case today. So this property on Dapple Gray in Rolling Hills Estates has 2 records in our system, and that's common. Usually you will find that we'll have a notice of default record and a notice of sale. They're normally separated by 3 months or 90 days, which is the legal requirement for a lender to wait before they can issue the second notice. So you'll notice that the Dapple Gray property is here twice. The first record is from April, and the current record is from July, exactly 90 days apart. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Dapple Gray address, and that opens my profile. And here's what I have is I have what appears like a loan for from 2002 and a loan from 2010. Now, looking at this, my question is, are these in fact 2 separate loans, or is it the same loan re-recorded as perhaps a modification? That's a question that I would have in my mind. So what was the question that you had, Ron?
It was a question of if we have the second and we wanted to bid on that, and suppose that we had a bid that was higher than the money outstanding. What is the obligation to the first? Do we just have to make it current? Do we have to, can we just go to the bank and say for the first update the interest payments that were due and not met? And then does that meet our obligation, or does the bank have the ability to foreclose on us if we went ahead and bought the second or call the loan?
Yes. So the main question is, if I buy a property at auction with a second, on the second loan foreclosing, what are the options that we have in terms of dealing with the first, and what are the options the first has in dealing with us? The bottom line is the lender can call the note. Most loans have a due on sale clause. But in general, what you're going to find is the lender oftentimes will not call the loan as long as you do bring it current. What this is a common strategy for investors is purchasing subject to. And when we make offers prior to the auction, we're making an offer subject to. So if I said, I want to go to Mr. Hubbard here and offer Mr. Hubbard $1 million for his property, or 900,000, what have you. If I offer subject to, then I'm offering to bring both loans current during the process of the purchase of the property. And then my next step would be to either refinance if I plan to hold the property, or I would simply flip the property to someone else, and that person would take care of refinancing and paying off these lenders. So in answer to Ron's question, yeah, if you're making an offer, you try to bring both loans current if you're going to do a flip, because you don't want to put too much of your own cash into it. If I was going to own the house, then I would purchase it that way, and then I would do a refinance on my own and put my own loan on the house and get rid of these two. Because chances are I can get a much better interest rate today than is going to be on either of these two loans. If I'm going to flip it to the other guy, if I'm doing this as an investor flip, then the other guy who buys the property from me would then step in and simply refinance these loans off the property in his escrow. Okay. Now, if I'm bidding at the auction, then I'm going to be paying off this loan that's owed about 404. And then whatever remains of this 471, then I would bring that loan current. I'd contact them and tell them I'm the new owner, and I would try to bring the loan current. Now, as a positive for us as investors, it's also important to know the Homeowners Bill of Rights, which came into effect in January of 2013, is actually a benefit to you in this circumstance, Ron, because the Homeowners Bill of Rights tells me that if this first decides to start a foreclosure, then they have to take certain steps. They have to follow the Homeowners Bill of Rights requirements that require that they contact the homeowner first by mail and by telephone attempts if they can get a hold of them. Okay. All right. So now bottom line is, because the homeowner is protected by the Homeowners Bill of Rights, if I became the homeowner at the auction by bidding on the second, before the first can start their foreclosure on the property for calling the note, so to speak, because of a change of ownership, they would have to go through those steps. So that means, quite frankly, I've got at least a month and a half before the lender in first position would actually actively start a foreclosure. And if I go to bring the loan current by reinstating that first, assuming it's in arrearage too, then I've got plenty of time to carry out my flip.
How can you find out if the first is behind on their payments?
Well, that's a good question. First of all, it's difficult to find that out unless you actually go through the homeowner at this point, or get the homeowner's permission to speak to the lender in first position, because that lender in first position has a confidentiality agreement with the borrower. And so therefore they have to honor that confidentiality. Now, if I go to Mr. Hubbard and I go to make an offer, then that would be a way of inquiring into that kind of in a roundabout manner, because I'm trying to find out what he owes. So if he's willing to tell me, then I can find out that way. Another thing that you could do is what I call extrapolating, or taking what applies with the second loan and apply it to the first loan. And since we're on this path, let's go ahead and follow that through. So remember how we found the property. I'm going to go ahead and hit my back arrow, takes me back to my list. And here's the first apple gray. I'm going to click on this file. Now, in this case, this is our notice of default record, which again predated the notice of sale. And what we see is, as of 4/3, they were in arrears $31,000. Now, the stars floating down here, for some reason, our researcher didn't put it on that particular loan. However, we know that they did correct it on the second record, so we know that it is the 426 that's foreclosing. And again, if I want to question that, I can open up that other profile. And notice that our researcher ID'd the 2010 loan that's foreclosing. And so I do know that that's the 2010 loan that's actually the foreclosing loan. So there's redundancy in our records for that reason, so that I can go back and I can answer my own question. It is in fact the 2010 loan. Now, the 2010 loan is for $426,000, and the delinquency is $31,000. So if we were to just take and say figuratively, let's assume that their payments are about $3,000 a month on a $426,000 loan. Now I could be off, but we're ballparking it at this point, right?
Here.
Okay, so let's assume that they've missed about 10 payments. I think that's a fair assumption at that point. So
Shmuel has to be corrected. It looks like something else.
I'm
Looks like
sorry?
a U instead of a U.
I'm sorry? Was that for me? Okay.
No.
Okay, you're on the webinar, so
Yeah, I
beware.
know.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So, bottom line is, if they missed about 10 payments in April, it's 4 months later. Now they're about 14 payments behind. So what you could do is you could extrapolate by taking an amortization schedule for a $470,000 loan from 2002, and figure out if they were current up until 1 year ago, what would the principal balance be? Because we can assume that when they fell behind on one loan, they fell behind on the other, because people are creatures of patterns, right? We're creatures of habit, we're creatures of patterns. So if I stop paying on my second, I probably stop paying on my first at the same time. And that's a realistic assumption that we can make. And so let's assume that this family was doing okay until about a year ago, and then something must have happened. Okay, because remember, there are two reasons people go into foreclosure. Either they cannot make their payment or they will not make their payment. Okay, basically in those circumstances, people that cannot make their payment, it's because something that's beyond their control, lost my job, got very ill, something like that, versus somebody who will not make their payment, which is basically caused by, and in this group of foreclosures you'll see them, properties where they were bought at a higher price point because they bought at the wrong time or refinanced at the wrong time when the values were higher, and then those people felt buyer's remorse about their loan and they chose to stop paying. Okay, so those are there are two different categories as far as that goes. What this situation looks like is you have a family that simply ran into a problem, a crisis. And just for clarification for all of you, the reason we have so many foreclosures is that there are a lot of families that are paycheck to paycheck. And all it takes is one major illness or car wreck, and they're in a crisis. Okay, and we don't know what the crisis here is, but what we do know is that they're in a situation where it appears they cannot make their payments. So I would assume that that 471 was paid down effectively as a 2002 loan for about 12 years until they hit this crisis a year ago. Okay, so now we can, if we extrapolate, then you can do the math, you can figure out what they should owe on that first. Okay, just assume it's in the same condition as the second, and that's your best bet. And then you can make, then you can move from there. If you want to confirm it, you can approach the family and try to make an offer and see if that gets any ground, because we're in a position where if you were willing to spend $900,000 for this place, you could probably buy it in a direct transaction by making an offer. If we're looking to buy it for about that price at the auction, then that's when we would wind up bidding at the trustee sale. Okay, it's moving a little slow right now. That's when we would end up bidding at the trustee sale and essentially pay off that second as like a down payment, and then reinstate the first by bringing that one current, assuming that their debt indebtedness or their arrearage on that first is probably very similar. They're probably in arrears by about 30 to 40 grand, very similar to what they are on that second loan. Okay, so you got time to do your flip either way. If you buy the property through an offer, of course, you're going to bring the loans current and go from there. If you buy it through the auction, then you're simply bidding it with cash at the trustee sale, and then you're going to take over what's left of this first. Now, let me see if they've set an opening bid. They haven't done so yet. Now, the lender in this case can do two things. They could ask for what they're owed, which is about 404, or they could discount if they felt they needed to make it more appealing. Don't know which way they're going to go. They could hit you for the 404, or they could come in at 3 trying to entice someone to the sale. You know, we always cross our fingers and hope you're going to have a lender that thinks that way. But be prepared to pay the 404 if that comes up. Okay. Did that pretty much answer your question, Ron? Do you have anything left?
Yeah, one sec, Bob.
No.
Once you talked about assuming a loan versus acquiring a loan on the first, did
Well,
you say the
it's
difference?
I'm sorry, it's taking subject to, not assumption. Assumption's different.
Okay, could you explain those?
Okay, all right. When we make an offer subject to existing loans, we've got these 2 loans here. If I went to Tim and I'll say, Tim, let me have your house. Here's my offer. I will take over the payments. I will bring these 2 loans current and I will make the payments like you were up until about a year ago. Okay, so I'll take over Tim's loans and I'll become the owner of Tim's house. So where it says owner here, instead of Gail and Tim, that would be me, okay? But the trustors don't change. Tim Hubbard would still be on the loans, okay? That's called making an offer subject to. Now, to clarify why we can do this, if this house goes to auction on the 20th, and the lender in this case, who was this lender? I forget who that was. Okay, it's on the NOD. It's not here. Quality Loan is a trustee. Quality Loan's a trustee. Okay, if this went to auction and nobody showed up, okay, first of all, some people don't like to bid on seconds. I think it's just a matter of the math. Okay, if the math works, you bid on a second. If the math don't work, don't do it. Okay, now. If I bid it, if this goes to auction and nobody else shows up, the lender who owns this loan will become the owner of the property. That's how it becomes an REO. Is that clear for everyone? Does that make sense? That if this goes to auction, this lender that's foreclosing on the second will become the homeowner if nobody else bids. Okay, because the lender is always the opening bid. At every auction, every time, the lender is the opening bid. Now, how do we get the property at the auction? Is we come in and we outbid the bank. We get the bank's deal, okay? If we outbid the bank, it's our house. Now, if we're taking the bank's place, we get to do what the bank does, which is to take over the property and then negotiate with this other bank. Now, the other bank is a loan that's written to Tim Hubbard. But if I'm this other bank, I get to take the house over and I get to write them a check, even though I'm not Tim. So now, since we could do that at the auction, then we can also do it in making an offer. So the difference between an assumption and a subject to is that if I take it over subject to, this loan for 471 goes with the house. It's just like if there's a hot tub in the backyard, it goes with the house, okay? And this loan goes with the house. So now I take over Tim's loan and I write the checks. That's it. Now that's subject to. Now, if I'm going to live in the house for the next 20 years, maybe I don't want Tim's loan on the house. Maybe I want to put it in my own name. I want to put the loan in my own name. The house is in my name, but the loan is not. If I want to transfer and get a different lender, then I'll get, for instance, if I don't like the interest rate on this 471, then I can refinance it off the property. As the new owner of the house, I can do that. It's my house. So I'll just transfer the debt to a different bank. Now, if I were to assume a loan, then I would actually take over Tim's name on this loan. I would have to go through a credit check. I would have to qualify. I would be facing all the regulations that lenders are required to meet. And if I couldn't qualify, I'd fall out of escrow and I wouldn't get the loan. Okay, so if I'm going to assume a loan, then I'm taking a credit position on the property. If I make it subject to, then if I fall down, let's say that if I fell down on this one and I didn't make the payments, then it would go back into foreclosure, but it would be foreclosing against him. That's why people buy foreclosure properties subject to, because let's say that I'm not going to keep this house. Let's say that I'm going to flip this to someone else. Then I don't want my credit tied up in this house with a brand new loan that I had to get. I don't want to have to pay closing costs on a new loan. I don't want to have to deal with all those issues, do I? I can just make an offer subject to these existing loans, or I can buy it at auction subject to this existing first, and therefore I'm not having to enter a credit relationship brand new. I'm just simply taking over somebody's credit card on the property. So if we assume the loan, that's different. That requires, again, jumping through the hoops and qualifying and going through that type of an escrow. If we can avoid that, then we can do a faster close, and it's a cheaper close through escrow because I don't have lending costs, I don't have origination fees, and I don't have a variety of regulation hoops to jump through. Does that clarify it some?
So on a bid on a second, do you have to write the word subject to on there anywhere?
I'm sorry, say that again?
When you bid with county records on a second,
Yeah.
do you have to write subject to on your bid anywhere?
No. Okay. If I'm bidding on a second, it's a given from all parties concerned that the first stays with the property, and I'm obligated to bring it current unless I'm willing to let the first foreclose on me. Now, again, if the first were to foreclose after you buy the house at the auction by bidding on the second, that new foreclosure would be against him. It wouldn't be against you personally, but when they foreclose against Tim, they take the house from whoever owns the house, even if it's not Tim. Okay, so you can bid on the second at auction, you'll own the property subject to an existing first, and then you either bring that first current and then do your flip, or you could just let that first languish and wait to see if they start a foreclosure on you. Okay, if you think you can do the flip really quick, then maybe you just simply bid at auction, take over the property, and go ahead and do your rehab and your flip, and hope that the first doesn't start anything. Okay, you could do that, or you contact the first to bring them current. Now again, if they decide to call the note because it's a first, they do have to contact you and make an overture to try to see why you're not making your payments. Okay, they'll try to contact him because his name's on the loan. Okay, but you're the owner of the property, so the letters are going to come to you. All right. Did that clarify, or more or less?
Oh, that sounds good. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. So again, this is why buying foreclosures is fascinating, because once we learn that we can take over a property without having to take out a new loan, that frees us to use up our capital in a much more lucrative manner, because I don't have to bid $800,000 or $900,000 at this auction. I can get in here and buy the property for $400,000 and then concentrate on my flip. Okay. So whenever we're doing this research, part of what we're looking for is how to discover these opportunities and make them happen for ourselves so that we're in a position to make our cash flow go farther and to create situations for ourselves. And it's a numbers game. It's always a numbers game. So if I could get into here with only spending half the money, you're darn tootin', I'm going to do that. Okay. Now, again, you'll notice our tabs up on top. If I go ahead and I close that profile, I'm back at my main page. Now, this is our primary page. This is where we do most of our research. So for those of you that joined us a little bit late, this is all being recorded so you can view the entire presentation next week if you need to catch up on the first few minutes. But what we were doing with one of our clients here was we were researching a known address by using our single property search option. Now, what he had done is he gave me a particular address in LA County South as a zone, and what we're going to do is we're just going to take a momentary step backwards in time, and we're going to go back to where we initially start our presentations. We were doing a specifically focused search on a property, and that's how we were able to discover this one. Okay, what we did is we did the single search, and then we did that. I'm going to show you a little bit more about using the single property search here, but we're going to go ahead and do a general search for those of you who just joined us. So first of all, whenever you log into the website, you come to this page. This is our primary page. It's our home screen. You'll notice the tab says County Records Research. When we have additional tabs open, they'll have different headers, but this one will say County Records Research most of the time, unless we go into one of our subcategory pages, like our My Properties or our My Searches page, which I'm going to show you here in just a moment. Now, first of all, we're going to go ahead and do a basic search. I've got LA County South selected as my zone. You'll notice anytime you put your cursor over a zone, you'll get a list of cities indicating what cities are inclusive in that zone. And that's simply for benefits of navigation purposes, so I know I'm looking in the right place. You know, I don't want to look for Las Vegas in South LA County, but I know that if I got my LA County South zone selected, I've got all these cities to choose from. Now, once I picked my zone of interest, I scroll down to my general property search screen. You'll notice I just bypassed the single search, and now I'm in the general property search. This is where we find most of our opportunities. Now, we mentioned talking about making offers subject to. For those of you that are looking, again, to make your capital go farther, we always recommend making offers. So with the LA County South selected, if I have notice as a default selected, you'll notice that there's a listed date range down below. So that's 7/29 to 8/12. That's a 2-week range ending in today's date. For clarification, we call our listed date or added date the date we post the record to the website. Every day at about noon, we post records to our site. So there will be some brand new records that just came up today. Now, for purposes of giving people a chance to get an immediate result on their searches, we give you this 2-week range. So if I go down here and hit search, I know I'm going to get something. Okay, so LA County South has a total of 196 new NODs in the last 2 weeks. Okay, so I know I searched NOD, that's up here on the left in red. Now it says 0 to 20 of 196. So I've got 196 across the last 2 weeks, so we're averaging about 19 a day across 10 working days. And now the first one on my list is on Michelson Street in the city of Lakewood. Okay, now a couple of just navigation keys. You'll notice it says 0 to 20, but I've got a larger number, so I'm going to hit the 60 down here where it says show 20, 40, 60. I'm going to click on 60. Now you'll notice that it just reformatted my map, and now it says 0 to 60 of 196. Now I can scroll down, and I've got a much longer list. Now you'll also notice this looks similar to an Excel spreadsheet, and it's got a lot of the same functions. If I wanted to sort these by city, I can just hit the word city. Now you notice the first time around it gives me Z to A. It gives me an inverse. Sometimes people like to look at what's on the back end. That's fine. So now if I scroll down, going by the cities, well, here's a property that in that same area that we were looking. And what this looks not completely dissimilar to what we were just looking at. Here we've got a property that's worth about $840,000, and there's a foreclosing second. It looks like there's a first of 416. So if I want to know more about this particular property, I'll take my mouse and I'll put it over the address and I'll left click. Okay. Now while that profile's loading, be aware that this is the NOD stage. This is in that other example, the NOD had popped into our system in April, and the notice of sale hit our system in July, 90 days or 3 months later. Now, we're looking at a notice of default from July. So we're going to expect to see a notice of sale when? October, approximately 3 months later. So if this ship doesn't get righted by then the homeowners are going to have somebody come along and either make an offer, buy the property from them directly, or it'll end up going to the trustee sale. And again, very similar to that other property. Now, this particular one is on Della Sonde. Now, we like to take you through the basics. With this situation, I don't have to wait for this house to go to auction. I've already got a couple of things in my mind. First of all, their delinquent amount is fairly small from what I can see. It's only $5,000. And their loans are of lesser value than the property, because it looks like they owe about $666,000 on what looks like an $840,000 property. Now, it also appears that Chase is the lender here, JP Morgan. Okay, now, and just as a point of clarity, they have a tendency to discount at the auction just like Bank of America does. So the concept of bidding at the auction on this is in the back of my mind. My main focus as an investor, of course, is what price point do I want to pay? Okay, so if my price point is $600,000, I'm going to look at these numbers and say, I don't know. I don't know, because they should owe $666 if these principal balances have not gone down. So now, here's where I ask myself a basic question. Have these principal balances gone down? Do I know? How would I know? Well, there's a couple of ways that we can find out. First of all, we used the single property search at the very beginning of this presentation, and I'm going to use it again because I do the same things again and again because they work. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this parcel number right off the profile, and I'm going to copy it. Then I'm going to go up, remember our tabs, I'm going to hit County Records Research, and lo and behold, I'm right back at the main page. So I scroll up so I can see Kurt's picture, and that means I'm in my single property search area. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste in my parcel number, and I'm going to clear out that address I had from the previous record, because I need to make sure there's no artifact from a previous search. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit search here. Now, while it's loading, I'm going to expect to see either one record, because this is a notice of default. If it's the same, okay, if it was the same record that I had just looked at, then I would know I don't have access to additional information. However, I do have access to additional information. It looks like these people have had some issues since 2011. So they've been having difficulties on and off for about 4 years. Okay, now the reason you have this history is so that you can cross-check some information. Now notice that I've got 4 records that have no sale date. These are default notices. So the record that we were just looking at is a notice of default, and you'll notice the list date here is 7/29. 7/29. So that's this record right here. That's a restart of this sale or this notice of default that was actually initiated back in 2012. Now it appears that the first loan was doing its own foreclosure. I'm going to click on that. So now, so that's Bank of New York. Okay, Bank of New York was bought out by Bank of America during the merger mania after 2008. Okay, so this is a B of A first, and they were in arrears by about $48,000 back in 2011. Okay, you notice how I can kind of go back in time and explore their history. So back in 2011, they were arrears by about 40, and then they took this property, or they were going to take it to sale in that same year. This sale got canceled. Now, when this sale got canceled, they only owed $300,000 on that first. Good to know, huh? Good to know. Now I know that $416,000 is probably closer to 316,000 today, ballpark. I'm ballparking best I can do at this point. But what I'm doing is I'm establishing for myself there is equity in this property, and it would make sense to consider bidding on the second. Otherwise, I would be very concerned that I was making a good choice. Similarly, I can go make an offer today because I'm aware that there's equity position in the property. Because if they're only a little bit arrears on this second, then it might be okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check really quick to see what their situation was back in 2012 when this notice of default was issued in 2012. So they were in arrears about 24,000 back then, and now it's only about 5. So these people have been trying. They've been trying, but they're treading water. And this is again, people either can't pay or they won't pay. They've been trying, but they can't do it. They're treading water. Someone needs to make these folks an offer. Chances are they've got a significant amount of equity here, and you could offer them a fair price, or we should be in the ballpark where we could offer them a fair price. Or if we look at it and we can't swing the deal in the offer, then maybe we prepare to buy the property through the trustee sale at the auction. Okay, if you make an offer and they say no, they say no. If you go to them and make a short sale offer because A, they're treading water and they keep falling behind, and B, they know they can't afford this house, so maybe I just do the numbers. And that would be my bottom line to you. And this is one of the first things we tell you and the last things we tell you. Figure out your price. What is your price? So now, using the functions of the website, I've got a map here, and I'm going to put my mouse cursor in, and I'm going to use the little wheel on my mouse to zoom in on their home, and I'm going to hit bird's eye. Okay, now, okay, this ain't too shabby. This ain't too shabby at all. So we got a nice house. Looks like they got a nice pool in the backyard. They might have even done some upgrades here that would make, oh, this is nice. It ain't bad. It ain't bad. Corner lot. Okay, not bad. And so I would give myself a thumbs up here in terms of the quality of the property, that I should consider going ahead and making an offer. Now, if I did, my offer is subject to, just like with the other property, if I'm willing to take over the balances owed. So if I approach them, I'm going to have a dollar amount in mind, but let's say that dollar amount is, and I'm going to be generous. So I'm going to say 700,000. If my dollar amount's about 7 and they owe 6, then it's a subject to offer. It's an equity agreement, and I can take this property over without involving the lenders. Because again, subject to is not assuming the loan. Subject to simply means I take over payments, I bring them current. So if I sit down with this couple and I take a look at their statements from these two lenders, I can figure out exactly what it would take to pay these two lenders off. Okay, so if I'm willing to simply bring those loans current and then flip this property and sell it to somebody else, then I'm basically just giving them a little bit of monies, and I'm going to make my monies on my flip. Okay. Oh, okay. I had a note here from Paul. He's asking me, could I go over again how I knew the amount of that first loan was 316,000? Okay. How did I know that was 3? Oh, okay. When you have a notice of trustees sale filed on a property, they have to tell us what's owed. So I'm going to open this profile. We're going to wait for it a little bit. Paul's question, which is a very valid question, is, because I went really quick there, how did looking at this notice of sale from before give me an idea of what's owed? The difference between a notice of default, which tells us the delinquent amount and when they fell behind, the notice of sale schedules an auction. That's why we have our auction information down here. But more importantly, it tells me what they owe total. This is my total amount as of that particular date, and this was posted on October 26th of 2011. Now, so this told me that at that time they owed $300,000 at the time that that first was taking it to auction. Now, I made a ballpark guesstimate, and I assume that they fell in behind again on this one because they're behind on the second, because the second is now in default. They have a delinquency of about $5,000, and the first was originally a larger loan. So I'm just kind of extrapolating and saying, okay, I think they owe that 300 from before, from this record, but I think that that number has progressed because they're treading water again. They fell behind on the second loan, so I must assume that they're behind on the first. It's just reasonable to assume that. And again, if I go to Carlos and Angelica and I go to make an offer to them, we can find this out in the conversation, because chances are they've been trying to figure this out. They've been trying to hold on to this house for a while. But if the bottom line is if they've reached a point where the decision needs to be made to find a smaller place or what have you, they need to make a decision, and they're either going to let the bank make the decision for them by simply continuing to tread water until one of these lenders finally takes the house to auction, or they need to take the bull by the horns and they need to make a decision. And somebody needs to go over there and press upon them the need and the urgency to be in control of their own future and to sell the property to someone else, as opposing to let the bank take the property to auction. First of all, the auction process is not as beneficial for them because they're not in any form of control over the price at the sale. So they have no control over whether or not they're going to get extra monies out of this at all. Whereas if they're in control and they sell the property to you through a formal escrow, then they're assured to get whatever returns come from that sale, and they have prevented that auction from taking place, which is a further detriment to their credit history. Okay, so now again, using the same terminology from before, subject to we make our offer. If I can work it out with Carlos and Angelica, we buy the property that way. Now, in exploring this, it did appear to me that both of these loans, we have a Chase loan and we have a B of A loan. I'm going to assume buying the note is probably not my optimal choice, simply because it's a challenge reaching through these larger lenders on individual single-family residences. If this was a commercial property, I would be all over buying the notes, because if this was a commercial property with either of those two primary institutional lenders, they are known to sell those notes, and so therefore I would consider doing that. Or if I had looked this up and I found an individual's name or a credit union or a smaller lender, then I would recommend also pursuing that method, trying to acquire the note, and then you become the lender that's in charge of selling the property and in control of the circumstance. So if we can get it through the homeowner, we do that. If we can't do that, then we consider trying to become the lender by buying the note at a discount. Short of those two methods, our next step, of course, is to wait for this one to go to auction. Now, do I want to wait for October to roll around and then maybe buy it in the auction in November? Or do I want to go to talk to Carlos and Angelica and see if they are understanding what I understand and they need to sell the property? So when we go to the property, if it already has a for sale sign, my goodness, make an offer. If there's no for sale sign, that's good. That's fine. That means there's no agent involved yet. Okay, if you're an agent, go there and try and get the listing. Or if you're an agent with a client, go there and make the offer. Or if you're simply an investor looking for the opportunity, you go and you make that offer yourself. Okay, the forms are right on our forms page. Now notice, whenever I need to go to a different subject, I go right back to my County Records Research tab, and that takes me to my main page. Okay, so now we've looked at how the single property search works. We've done a search for a notice of default. We found that. Okay, now if we wanted to make an offer, on the left-hand side of the screen are different page options separate from our main home screen. So if I select Forms, this is my Forms page. So this is where I can pick up my different forms that I can use to make offers. If I need to give someone a 3-day notice, if I want to look at some more details about the Homeowners Bill of Rights, that's our California Senate Bill 1137. And there are different other documents, but the main ones are our real estate purchase contract and receipt for deposit that I use to make my offer. And we have a sample down below where it says sample real estate purchase offer for existing investment property. So these are the forms that we pull out to make an offer. We're happy to walk you through how to fill out a form. We can do that in a different presentation because it takes a few minutes and people always have a bunch of questions. So I want to keep us flowing on how the website works for us. So if you grab your purchase contract off this report, then you just write up the offer for them. If they're willing to accept the offer, then they'll sign it. Now, if it is an equity purchase offer, if there's equity in the home and it's their home, they live there, then we would have to also use the equity purchase agreement if they agree to let us open an escrow. Now, so you'll notice one of the things that I look at is this their house? Delisande Drive is the house in question, and it's also their mailing address. So I believe from the first moment that Carlos and Angelica live in the house. So this is their home. So since I'm making an offer on their home and I'm an investor and I'm considering offering them something above what they owe, that's an equity purchase offer. So I would have my real estate purchase contract copies with me, but I would also have my equity purchase agreement forms as well. Okay, so the equity purchase agreement is when we as investors go to make an offer to somebody and we're offering them above what they owe, but of course we're trying to get it at a deal. We want to get a discount, right? So even though this house is worth maybe $840, I definitely don't want to pay that, because what if I can only sell it for that? How am I going to make any money? So I'm always going to make an offer for a dollar figure somewhat less. Okay, now that somewhat, there's differences of opinion, and mainly it's because if I look at the house and it's turnkey, this looks like it's pretty turnkey. I don't think I'm going to have to do a lot of fix it up, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. So when I make my offer, my initial offer is a basis offer. Here's what I'm offering to buy: let's say 7 1/4 or 7 even. So if I'm going there with an offer of about 7, knowing I may be able to sell it for about 8.5, then once I make that offer, if they accept it, then we can open our escrow. And during my inspection, that's when I discover if there are any surprises that I'm unaware of. Remember, if we have any surprises, then we can always, during the inspection process, write up a list of problems and put a dollar figure next to each one. This is a key negotiating tactic that people use when they're buying properties from lenders on an REO basis, but it's also how we make offers to individuals as well. Because if I go to buy your house and I make you an offer, and then I get underneath the house and I realize that all the floorboards are rotted out and I have to replace the plumbing, then I know that my original offer wasn't considering that devastating piece of bad news. It's a bad surprise. So then in the process of the escrow, I'm able to bring down the price by pulling up an estimate of what it would cost to fix all those problems. So we make an initial offer, then we do our inspection during escrow. If everything pans out, then we're probably going to be in the same range of price. But if we find that we have a reason and a justification to bring the price down, absolutely we do. Because again, I'm going in with a price based on what I think I can make money with. If I find a piece of bad news that says it's going to cost me 50 grand more than I thought, then my offer goes down by 50 grand. And I think that's only fair. And most people do. Okay, so I would make my offer based on what I think is a fair price to pay. Now, with my forms selected, I print out your equity purchase agreements if you want to make offers to homeowners. If you're strictly making offers on REOs, all you need is the purchase contract. If you're strictly making offers on properties that are not owner occupied, then you just need this purchase contract. Okay, only if it's owner occupied and only if they have equity do we need these other forms. Okay, now most of your other forms that you'll have necessity of are here. Okay, and you'll notice that we have some other headings here. Most of these are for training. So we have a lot of videos, we have your frequently asked questions, we have your glossary of definitions, a lot of different things there. Now, you'll also notice that right above Kurt's photograph here, now this is also some questions that Kurt answers from previous seminar presentations. So please take advantage of our seminars. But you'll also notice above Kurt's photo, it says My Searches and My Properties. So I'm going to show you how these work. First of all, let's say that I have an interest in this particular property on Delisande. Now, remember that it's a notice of default here, and then it was a notice of sale from before. Now, I'm done with that notice of sale, so I'm just going to close that one out. And I'm going to go right back to my notice of default here. Now, what I can do is I can save this record to my Properties folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and right above the map, you'll see that there's a big blue save button. Next to it, it says general folder. And I'm just going to save this to my general folder. So I'm going to hit save. And now what's going to happen is this is going to save it to my general folder, my Properties folder. While it's doing that, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select that main page again. And then notice I can go back and I can select my properties. Okay. Now, the property just got saved, so the save button's now gone. And here's my Properties folder. So now it should be here where with my other properties that I just saved. And there it is. There's my Delisande property. Now, so it's saved. Now what I didn't show you is I could type in my notes. I can upload photos. So that allows me to save it into my Properties folder and then put in my own private notes. Now, if you add notes to my property, to a property profile when you save it, then it becomes your confidential information. Now, within this folder is a list of different properties. Now you'll notice some of these have sale information, auction dates, auction status. These two were canceled after I saved the record. These two got postponed after I saved these records. So when you save anything with the save button over to My Properties, you can then the notice of sale records get updated for you automatically. Now you'll notice that most of these don't have that information. These are default notices. A default notice doesn't get updated because they never do. A default notice simply sits against a property until they bring their loans current. Okay, if they don't bring their loans current, it simply has a default notice. And then when they do bring them current, the notice gets rescinded or removed. Now, if I file a default notice against a property today and it takes them 2 years to bring it current, that default notice will be against the property for those 2 years. If I record a sale notice, sale notices time out. A sale notice is only good for 1 year. So our sale notices are constantly updated because eventually that gets canceled or it goes to sale, one or the other. Okay, so a sale notice, we keep track of it for you, and you can save your properties to your folders. And now you'll notice that this says all folders, but if I go to my Manage Folders tab in the center, you'll see I have quite a few folders. And these are all, everything is a subfolder based on whatever I specifically chose to put in there. For instance, I've got one here that says Bob's Houses. Okay, so if I go to Bob's Houses, I can do that. Now, another thing I can do is if I've got folders in here that I don't need, I can simply select them and delete them by hitting my Delete Records option. Like I'll take the XYZ folder and I'll say, I'm done with that. I'll get rid of it. It asked me, are you sure? Because, you know, you don't want to get rid of properties if you don't have to, but yeah, I'm sure I'm going to get rid of it. So now it's gone. Okay, but what if I say, oh, I really needed that. I forgot. I was working with Jim the other day, and he wanted me to keep properties for him, and I told him I'd keep them in my XYZ folder, so I got to put this back on. Okay, it's back. Okay, now any properties I had in there, they're history, but they're still in the system. Okay, because our system never omits records. Our system has records going back 8 years. That's one of the reasons why that single property search option is stellar in terms of doing our research. Now, since we're getting to the last few minutes of the presentation, you now know that you can save your properties to your My Properties folders. You know you can create specialized folders if you want to. You'll notice that you have all your properties here, and that if you want to move them to a folder, that you can check them and put the option to move them to one of these other folders. If you wanted to move them from one folder to another, you can do that. Okay. Now, what we want to also show you is an example of how to use your My Searches folder. Now, what this is searches that I've saved over time. All right, because as time goes by, you'll realize you're going to do the same searches again and again and again, right? Okay. In addition to that, you want to be able to set up the website to have a virtual foreclosure assistant to send you notification emails when a property pops up that is of specific interest to you. So let me show you an example. This is my Fountain Valley here in Orange County, Fountain Valley NTS Polygon. This is a search I set up in my recent search for the house that I was able to purchase recently. And in this particular case, I wanted an area near Miles Square Park in Fountain Valley. So now if I click on this saved search, it takes me to my search page. But you'll notice if I scroll down, here's a polygon that I developed around this target area. We were looking throughout this area. We wound up getting something right there. Okay. Now, in this particular situation, what I did is I set up a parameter based on a general wraparound of a target area. I could have been very specific along the streets, but I chose to go a certain route. Now, if I wanted to just do this fresh, start from scratch, let me show you. I'm going to hit clear all, right? And I'm going to go ahead and reselect Orange County. Now you notice I cleared it, that all that other stuff's gone. So now let's say that I want to do a fresh search. I'm going to do a polygon in Orange County again. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say I want to see auction properties. No, wait, I'll change my mind. I want to see notice as a default because I want to do those subject to offers because that's exciting. I know I can go out and make offers and I don't have to take out a new loan. Okay, especially if my credit is a little damaged. Subject to offers are how people get into a property if their credit is not perfect. Okay, so now let's say that I'm going to do notice as a default and I only want homes that have 3 bedrooms, 2 bath and above. Okay, Orange County, there's a whole lot of them. So now I'm going to use the polygon. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll in and let's say that I want to have a target area. I want this part of Irvine. Let's say that I want this part of Irvine, and we're going to call this our Irvine polygon. These are the lake area. I have friends that have property in this area. So I want to be near my friends here in Irvine. So I'm going to say I want to be here. Notice I just put a line right on Irvine Center Drive. And then what's this other street right here? Oh, University Drive. So I'm going to go down University to here. Okay, and then we see Michelson. See how Michelson's kind of curvy? So I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Now, I can just try and connect that, but you can see how sloppy I am with my lines. So over here, I have a button that says Close Poly Shapes. I'm going to click on that. So notice how it connected the last 2 points, because that's the hard part when you're doing a polygon is connecting these last 2 points so it forms a perfect box. Okay, so now I've got my box formed, I've got my polygon shape, I've selected 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and I've selected notice of default. That pretty much gives me what I'm looking for. So now, and this is what we're going to call this, because it's got these little lakes here in Irvine. I'm going to call this Irvine Lakes, but I have to save this search. So right above where it says choose one, see where it says save this search? So I'm going to hit that. Now you'll see that the system did a little blink because it had to remember what the search is that it's going to save. So that's why it gives you that little wink, and then it comes right back. But now I have a little header bar where I can put in my Irvine Lake NOD poly. And it helps if I spell poly right. Okay, so my Irvine Lake NOD polygon search. Now I just call it a poly search because I know what that stands for, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit save. Now notice it brought me right back to my searches page, and if I scroll down, here's my Irvine Lake NOD poly save search. Now notice that I have a spot here where it says activate notifications, and you'll notice that a number of these say deactivate notifications. So if it says activate, that means it's not activated yet. Okay, it's not highlighted in blue, so it's not activated yet. Okay, now if I hit activate notifications, it's now highlighted in blue and it now says deactivate. That means this is an activated notification search. Now what that means is that if I go to this search, or if, it means that any properties in this polygon that are 3-bedroom and 2-bath, from this day forward, I will get an email every afternoon at about 1 o'clock of any properties that pop up in this weird little polygon shape here. Okay? Now, if I discover that I need to broaden my range, I can go back to my saved searches and I can delete it. Okay? Notice I can go to my searches. I could simply hit delete and I can redo the search. Okay? So bottom line is you can set up as many as you want. You can have the website send you notifications. You can get notifications on sale notices if you want to get notified if a sale property is coming up, if you're looking to line up bids for our auction bidding service. If you're looking to make offers, whatever you're looking to do with the information, you can set up a saved search to match your requirement explicitly. And the more searches that you save, the more ability you're going to have for the system to send you these automatic tickler emails every afternoon. Bottom line is you've got a lot of features on the website. Use them all. Now, while we're on this page, and right before we finish, I want to bring your attention. You'll notice we have a blog. And what we do is we put information on the blog. This is what I create. So these are articles that we put on the blog over the years. Make offers to create a win-win situation, that's mine. How to spot a loan modification gone sour and what to do next, that's mine. And of course, 2 out of 4 of Monday's low bids in Pomona are reverse mortgage foreclosures. If you want to learn more about these, this is the new wave. This is what's coming. The reverse mortgage foreclosures are coming at you. And the reverse mortgage foreclosures, whenever you look over in this section, if you ever see a second for $1, that's what reverse mortgages are. And a reverse mortgage, here's one right here. This is a property on Southern Avenue in Southgate. This is a reverse mortgage. And if you take one thing away from this presentation, take this one. Gilbert and Beatriz Hernandez have a house in Southgate. This house is worth about $295. They had a reverse mortgage for $544. Most people out in the world would think they have a huge loan and you would have to do a short sale to buy this house. They only owe $252,000. This is a reverse mortgage. It's an equity line that has been capped and cut off, and they're now in foreclosure. They have about 3-4 months before this house will go to auction. Make an offer. Make an offer. Why not? Because if we can get them to accept our offer, then we're in a position to buy this property. Now, you cannot take over this as a reverse mortgage. You have to come in with monies. You have to have the cash, or you have to have the funding available to be able to make them an offer. But if you offer them enough to satisfy this lender that's owed $252,000, then you can have a property that's worth about $295,000. And if you're just trying to get your first feet wet deal, or specifically if you're looking for a rental home in that target area, because duplexes come up and fourplexes come up like this too. Remember that what you're looking for is the opportunity that other people don't see. And we're the company that can teach you how to find those opportunities. Remember, you got all the tools you need here with County Records Research. You've got the map, you've got the tools. You just need to go out there and prospect. Thank you so much for participating in today's presentation. This has been our August 12th webinar on how to use the website. If you'd like to join us on Friday, we're going to have a presentation there where we're going to do some more in-depth research on properties and look at different ways we can make that deal happen. This has been Bob Baker with County Records Research. Have a great day.